be the first one. Okay, from there, go back to page 11, and it says step 2 is the sentences for initial passage selection. After you've asked the student the questions that are on the interest attitude survey, you'll go to the sentences for initial passage selection, and you'll find those actually on page 20 for Form A. That's incorrect. You'll find them actually a little bit further. Form A begins on page 35. And you'll notice that I said Form A, and that's because there are 5 different forms of this. As I read before, there are several forms so that you can do pre, mid, and post assessment. May I recommend that you use Form A so that you're fresh with it, but also so that leaves you the advantage of having other forms to use if you ever tried this again with the same student. Okay? But Form A, the very first piece, is the sentences for initial passage selection. And these sentences are actually used to determine where you'll begin the rest of the assessment. The directions on page 11 say that you start 2 levels below the student's assigned grade. So if you were assessing a 3rd grader, you would begin on Form A Level 1. If you were assessing a 5th grader, you would begin on Form A Level 3. If you were assessing a 7th grader, you would begin on Form A Level, that's right, 5. Okay? And in each instance, where you begin, you simply ask the student to read the sentences out loud. And you listen and you watch. And every time the student makes a miscue, that's a mistake in the reading, whether it's a repetition or an omission, whether they substitute one word for another, or they completely miss it and mispronounce something. Okay? Anytime they make a miscue, you keep record of that on your copy of these sentences, and you ask the student to continue reading until they've made 2 miscues on the same level. So if we had a 5th grader beginning on level 3 and they made 0 miscues, we would ask them to continue. And they made 0 errors on level 4, so they would continue reading to level 5. And they made 1 error on level 5, would they continue? Yes, they would. All the way to level 6, where they make 2 miscues, at which point we would ask them to stop. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that level 6 is where we begin. If you go back to page 11, which is where our directions are, it says, you have the student, and this is in bold, have the student continue reading sets of placement sentences until they miss 2 words or more, then stop. The highest level, and this is very important, the highest level of placement sentences read with 0 errors should be the level of the first passage read by the students. So while the student is reading, you're keeping record, and the place where they make 2 errors, 2 miscues at the same level, is where you stop. And then you go back to the highest level where they made 0 miscues, and that's where you'll begin for step 3, which is the reading passages. So step 1, interest attitude survey. Step 2, the sentences for initial passage selection. Step 3, the reading passages. So if our student made 0 errors on level 3, 1 error on level 4, 0 errors on level 5, and 2 errors on level 6, we would ask them to stop at level 6, and we would begin with the level 5 passage.